is in Spanish. Please come by so you can grab a device. I will be interpreting the meeting in Spanish. Hola, si alguien necesita servicios de interpretación en español, por favor pase por un dispositivo. Voy a estar interpretando la reunión en español. Gracias.
I'd like to call this special board meeting to order and workshop session. And I'd like to turn it, the first matter on agenda is approval of resolution 1718-23 proclaiming May 9th, 2018 as the Day of the Teacher in Modesto City Schools. I'd like to turn this over to Superintendent Ridquist.
Board President Newman, as you mentioned, tomorrow we'd like to proclaim March 9th, 2018, the Day of the Teacher in Modesto City Schools. This is an annual resolution to recognize our certificate staff that work for Modesto City Schools. The second Wednesday of the month is what is designated in the state of California as California Day of the Teacher. So I would ask the board to approve Resolution 1718-23 proclaiming May 9th, 2018 as the Day of the Teacher in Modesto City Schools.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Ridquist from the board? Seeing no lights, are there any comments from the public regarding the resolution? Seeing none, we'll come back to the board for a motion and then a roll call.
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Grembo and seconded by Trustee Walker. Will you call the roll, Mr. Ridquist?
Trustee Jimenez is absent. Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Grenbo.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez.
Aye.
Trustee Marks is absent. Trustee Walker.
Aye.
Trustee West.
Aye.
And Board President Newman.
Aye. The motion, the resolution passes unanimously. That takes us on to the second item, which is just a workshop. So tonight, we are going to, there's some materials that Mr. Albritton and Mr. Zierli are passing out. And these are draft policies that we're going to be looking at tonight. And so these are available to be being passed out. There's also an overhead, a PowerPoint presentation, a copy of which is in the back room as you came in the back door. There are copies on that table. So tonight, what we're going to do as a board is we're going to go through each one of the proposed policies, talk a little bit about it, and Ms. Mack is going to lead us through that discussion and give us the staff's perspective on it. We can discuss it and then take input from the public. We're not going to be taking any action tonight. What we're doing is discussing the potential changes to policies and what we want to do. So if we want to proceed, thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Mack.
Thank you, and good evening. Tonight's presentation is on board policies, age, and admission board workshop. Tonight's objective is proposed board policy and administrative regulations for general education students. To clarify, a board policy, the Board of Education sets policies. Policies are principles adopted by the Board of Education to set a course of action. Administrative regulations sets forth the execution of the board policy. Sample board policy language. Where we receive a lot of our sample language is from the California School Board Association, or CSBA, and they provide gamut. They provide a sample board policy. The district also has the option to add specific to their district within the without violating the Ed Code. Tonight, you have received several copies for each board policy. You have received one that is not struck out And this usually is only seen in the second reading. So this is really early to see one that's unstruck out. The other piece to that is what the language that we're proposing. Then you would also, for the same board policy, for example, you received a board policy 5111. You also received a policy, board policy 5111, and you'll see it's underlined and striked out. Striked out means this is what it will look like when we provide it to the board for the first reading, meaning that the striked out would be what we're proposing to take out, and the underline is new language that we're proposing. Tonight, in the first packet that you received, the proposed changes. We're proposing to change from Board Policy 511.2 from Board Policy 511.2 to the proposed change, Board Policy 5111. We are also proposing to change from AR 511.2 to the proposed change AR 5111. Looking at the Board Policy 511 admissions, our proposed language is all children grades 6 through 18 years are subject to compulsory full-time education unless specified exempted, Education Code 48200. The governing board encourages the enrollment and appropriate placement of all school-age children in school. The superintendent or designee shall inform parents, guardians of children entering a district school at any grade level about admission requirements and shall assist them with enrollment procedures. Before enrolling any child in a district school, the superintendent or designee shall verify the child's age, residency, immunization, and other applicable eligibility criteria specified in law, the accompanying administrative regulation, or other applicable board policy or administrative regulation. The superintendent or designee shall ensure that the enrollment of a homeless or foster child or a child of a military family is not delayed because of the outstanding fees or fines owed to the child's last school or for his or her inability to produce previous academic, medical, or other records normally required for enrollment. In addition, no child shall be denied enrollment in a district school solely on the basis of his or her arrest adjacent of a juvenile court, formal or informal supervision by a probation officer, detention in a juvenile facility, enrollment in a juvenile court school, or other contact with a juvenile justice system, Education Code 48645.5. The superintendent or designee shall not inquire into or request documentation of a student's citizenship or immigration status and shall not deny a student enrollment in a district school or the basis of a citizenship or immigration status of the student or his or her parents' guardians. Any information obtained about a student's or parent's guardian citizenship or immigration status shall not be shared without parent guardian consent or a lawful judicial order in accordance with laws pertaining to the confidentiality of student records. A student shall not be denied enrollment based on the parent's guardian's refusal to provide the student or parent's guardian social security number. During the enrollment process, students or parents' guardians shall be informed that disclosure of their social security number is voluntary. When enrolling in any district school, including a school in their attendance area, children whose parents' guardians reside within district boundaries shall be subject to the timelines established by the board for open enrollment. Children whose parents' guardians do not reside within the district or who are not otherwise eligible for enrollment in the district may apply for inter-district attendance in accordance with the timelines specified in applicable board policies and administrative regulations. Our next one is Administrative Regulation 511, admissions.
Before we move on to that, does anyone have any questions on the board level? This one just pretty much mirrors Gamut. Any input or any questions? This one just mirrors what's in the CSBA. Is anyone seeing any issues that stand out? I think it's pretty clear cut on that one. Any comments? Nope. All right, we'll move on then.
Administrative Regulation 511, emissions. Our recommendation change. This one here, we had emissions prior, and it was considered age ability for admission to kindergarten and first grade. The language is now being changed to gamut. It is very similar to the previous language in many ways, and it followed Ed Code, but we went with the gamut language. So proposed change is age of admittance to kindergarten and first grade. It also includes information on transitional kindergarten. The piece that was added tonight is placement. Placement. Student grade placement is based on several factors, including a student's age, previous grade history, course history, and years of formal schooling. Consideration will be given regarding placement based on the following criteria. School admission shall be determined by site administration. Students' academic transcripts and enrollment packet will be reviewed by site administration counselor prior to school placement. Students who have a grade history and transcripts will be given credit for courses completed at their previous school based on a review of the transcript and transfer grades. If there is a discrepancy between the student's age and completed courses and the student has deficient credit units for their age, the student will be placed in the age-appropriate grade. If there is a discrepancy between the student's age and completed courses and the student has more credits units for their age, the student will be placed in the grade that appropriately reflects their credit units. I can give an example if you would like.
Yeah, why don't we talk about examples, the placement criteria here.
The example in this situation would be a student who is on track for graduation earns 60 credits a school year. If a student age 17 enrolls with less than 120 credits that would be needed to be on track for graduation, they would be placed by age. So a 17-year-old, in a moment you would see the charts, which is next. Maybe it's not next. In 2 more pages. You'll see this is a 17-year-old, which fit, depending on the time of year they enroll, they would either be 11th grader or a 12th grader. If a student age 17 enrolls with 200 credits, the student would be enrolled as a senior.
Does anyone have any questions on that at the board? We could go through the whole proposed policy and then take questions and then go to the public on this particular policy, or how would you guys like to do it tonight? Yeah, I'm of the board that has equal voice. So what would we like to do?
I just have a question. I'm trying to follow along, and so I'm reading what is going on. Sorry, just trying. Can you hear me? Just trying to follow along, and so
we're in AR 5111.
So I have 2 packets. I'm just trying to follow which packet is it the one with
It's one that's
and the additions, or is it the very, very thick packet that has a different number of that?
you want to go with the first packet, which was board policy 511. So then it's clipped.
Numbers coincide. Do the numbers
Mhm.
coincide with
They
that
do.
packet?
Yeah.
So I already reviewed the board policy 511, and you had 2 copies. And the second one would be AR 511. You're welcome.
So for each policy, you guys, so we know what we have in front of us. So we're talking. We've already left the conversation about board policy 5111, and so you have a striked out version, and then the one that's entirely basically from Gamut. Okay, that. And then on AR 5111, we have a clean copy, what I call clean, and then the striked out version. So there's 2 attached to AR 5111. Is everybody seeing that? Okay. So it's sometimes easier when you're looking at policy to not look at the striked out version. So you can, but you need to have that so you can see what we changed. All right, so do we want to talk about the first, okay, the admittance, the age of admittance to kindergarten and first grade? Is there any discussion about that? We pretty much, that was pretty much copied from Gamut, correct?
It was copied by Gamut, and our last language was similar, not exactly like Gamut, but was very similar.
And we've updated it to accommodate the changes in the law regarding TK and such.
It was already included in our last one,
Okay.
but Gamut had a different written piece, so we just followed Gamut on this proposal.
Okay. Trustee Brown has a question.
I just want to address this issue and ask if we have any unusual situations that come up regarding kindergarten and first grade placement that we as a district have to make exceptions to, that we need to be taking into consideration.
Can I answer that question? I was the director over TK, so I received those questions quite often. So several times we would receive a question that a parent, the date for TK, which is in the chart. I'm gonna go back to the blue chart. If you look at the blue chart for age for TK, it's September 2nd to December 2nd of whichever year is appropriate for that grade level. So they turning five, or they're 4-year-olds, and they're 5 when they get to kindergarten. So several times you might receive a parent that wants to keep their child back. So they should be in kindergarten, but they would like their kid back in TK. The law does allow for that, but we need to let a parent know that could be considered a retention or like a retention, because officially we should be keeping with those grade levels by age. And I can go on for kindergarten first.
Trustee Brown.
Yes, I know there are several situations that I'm aware of where parents feel that a child is not mature enough to enter first grade or kindergarten, and that staying out an extra year might be beneficial. Are we in policy saying that that is not possible for the parent to make that decision?
We allow parents to make that decision. We just have a SST with that parent writing notes stating they are aware that they're holding their child back.
And so that would affect their age as they progress through the entire school system.
That is correct.
Meaning that a child may graduate at age 19 instead of 18.
That is correct. And in this new proposal, it'll show that we took that in consideration.
Okay.
And that's not just for a parent that chooses to hold their child back. That's also for a child that's been retained. So it covers both those children.
Okay.
Examples.
And you brought up a good point, Trustee Brown and Ms. Mack, that this policies that we're talking about pertain to all of our students. This isn't about, one particular, foster youth, language institute, or any. These are policies for admission to our entire district. So it pertains to all of our students. We're talking globally here. And so because we want policies that apply to all students and that are fair. So, all right. So do we have any more comments from the board on as we move through? Trustee Walker.
And just to pick up what Trustee Brown was saying and sort of communicate that out to the audience and the public, is that these are the same questions that myself and Trustee Newman had earlier today about the very similar issue, in the sense that we really are looking at these side cases and we're asking the same questions. And you asked the same question I asked Newman today at around 11. And we sort of came up with the same idea and the same thought as what about that case? And it is covered, and so we're on the same wavelength.
All right. So again, back to the way the board wants to proceed. My take is let's go through this policy, discuss this potential policy, and then go out to the public and see if there's any comments or questions on it. So let's go ahead and proceed. I think you're in placement.
I was. So number 4 on placement is based by age. So attached here is a chart that if a student enrolls, going by the example I shared a few minutes ago, if the child is 7-year-old or 8-year-old, they would be in second grade. And so we follow this chart when enrolling students, even in the primary grades. Number 5, general education student new to the district, not currently enrolled in the district, age 18 or older, after review of their academic record, and who is not able to meet graduation requirements within the semester or current school year. The student shall be referred to adult education. General education student new to the district, not currently enrolled in the district, age 18, not yet 20, by the end of the academic year, who has been continuously enrolled in a regular day high school and who is able to meet graduation requirements within the semester or current school year may enroll in a regular day high school.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can we take those two paragraphs apart? Feels like we're moving quickly through something that's really, really important for us to understand.
Do you want to give some examples of how 5 and 6 work?
So number 5, general education student is new to the district. So they're walking in the door, have not been enrolled in a high school, and they're not currently enrolled in the district. They're age 18 or older. Our goal is for all students' records to be looked at, so that means their transcripts, their credits are looked at. And we also are looking at how many credits they need to graduate. And in this situation, that student is not able to, because the student is new to the district and 18 or older, they wouldn't be, and they're not currently enrolled in the district, they would be referred to adult education.
The trick she's getting, excuse me, is that this student in this case, even if they did enroll, would not have enough credits at the end of that year to graduate. So this is the case with an 18-year-old new student coming in and not enough credits to graduate even if they finish the year. That's this case.
Okay.
Each one's different.
So I'm already seeing some weakness in this policy referring to the same student that I had asked you about before. Let's say that a parent had made a choice not to start their student at age 5 in kindergarten, but waited until they were 6. If the family moved to our district and that student were an 18 or potentially 19-year-old, they may be academically only a junior, but we'd be telling them, if you can't complete within this current school year, then you have to go to adult ed, even if they've been in the system. Their age, according to this policy,
They're not new, they're new to the district.
yes,
so
if they are new to the district, let's say they move from another district while the child is a senior, or while the child...
They would fit under number 6. That would be the better policy that would fit them. So they're new to the district, they're not currently enrolled, but that your child you're talking about has been continuously enrolled in a high school.
Yes.
So they would be, if they're able to meet graduation requirements within that school year, they may enroll.
Well,
So-
they may not be able to within the year that they're 18.
No,
they-
look
we-
at the number 6.
Okay, let me read number, that's why I wanted to take these apart.
We tried to, honestly,
Yet 20 by the end, so that's why there is number 6. They're not yet
Yeah.
20.
we tried to think of all those kids.
Go through
Right.
6
6
with me,
catches
please,
the
so that I
student
can
you're
make sure
talking
I'm
about.
catching that piece as well.
Okay, so number 6, general education student new to the district, not currently enrolled in the district, so it would be the student that's moving in, age 18, not yet 20 by the end of the academic year, who has been continuously enrolled in a regular day high school. So this student could be the student you're talking about that was a year behind or however, retention or started late. And who is able to meet graduation requirements within the semester or current school year may enroll in a regular day high school. So that student would,
Okay, so
enroll.
Get picked up.
Yep.
He gets
Yep.
captured. And Trustee Lopez.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point of why we're including 20, and yet we're not allowing we're only allowing them to finish within that year, which would be 19. I just wanted to know why the 20 was specified there.
Go ahead.
Because it really relates back to,
The retained student is the issue.
that's exactly back. I'm trying to say your last name, and I'm not saying your last name. I'm thinking Chad. Trustee Brown's question was perfect because this is why we suggested going to 20, because a student that has been retained or their parent held them back would be, if we went back to that chart, they would be 18-19 or 19-20, depending on their age, or depending on when they were born.
Yeah, Trustee Lopez.
Well, I have an example. I was retained in 4th grade, and I have a brother that started. He's a December 15 child, so he started late. So he's gonna be he would be 18 when he graduates.
Right.
Let's say worst case scenario, he were to be retained somewhere further along the road, and he transferred into our district at the age of 19. He wouldn't be able to do that, even though because of our laws, we were asked him to be held back a year and start a year later. And then unfortunately, he was retained a year. So what happens with scenarios like that?
He would fall
This
under
number six
Number
would
6?
cover him.
Even though he would be coming into our district as a 19-year-old?
It is. It says not yet 20. So he's coming in as 19, or he might be. Most students, like myself, I have a birthday of October. So I was a 17 going on 18. If I had been retained, I would have been 18 going on to 19 if I had been retained.
Right.
So I, in that situation, would be qualified.
Okay.
Now with the new TK rules, in a few years, we will not see those October babies coming in anymore.
Right.
We will see the ones that have been held back would fit into that.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why I was like, does it have to be a strict 18-year-old, 18 years of age rule?
If you read 6,
Right.
you have to really be looking at 6, not the PowerPoint. So you're looking at the wrong item.
Okay.
And so I think that, and go ahead.
Yeah. So you're looking at AR 5111B, and then it's 6. So
Number
you're on the
6.
second page, right? Or
It's
the
also on the
third
PowerPoint slide
page.
814.
Yeah. It's on. Okay.
It's on both.
Yeah, that's why I said it had age 18, not yet 20, so a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Specifically
But-
19,
Yeah.
Right. They're continuously enrolled. So your brother's been continuously enrolled. So that's the issue in a high school. Trustee West.
So just tagging along with Trustee Brown and Lopez. So a student entering a junior year at the age of 18, would they be expected to complete high school requirements by the end of the junior year? Because their age is higher, but because they started school late, they're not a senior yet. How would that work?
They would be like this continuously enrolled, except they wouldn't be the 18 or 19-year-old. They would continue they would continue in that grade that they previously were in, because it would be like their examples. They were either retained or they held back or whatever, that they would be a year behind.
So they would have then 2 years to make these graduation requirements, not one if they came in as a junior, but they were already
This
18, almost
does
19.
not exactly cover the 17-year-old because it's talking about the 18-year-old, because that's usually where we're questioned. The 17-year-old goes straight into the grade that they previously were in at the previous school.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think the key language, if I understand what I'm reading correctly, is that, again, that they have been continuously enrolled in a day high school. And so they've been moving through the system continuously already. And so if you were held back or your parents kept you back, you would be okay because you've been continuously enrolled in a regular high school day school. And I think that picks up your case, in your case, and the question that me and Trustee Newman talked about earlier today, which was the one question I also had. And so having read through this a couple of times, the hook is in 6 that they are continuing, they've been in high school, on a regular day school, and within the system.
Does that clear up 5 and 6? Do you feel like we've worked it a little bit?
So I don't know if this is going to be addressed in another area, but how and when do we determine that a student has been continuously enrolled? Does that mean from the time they started in kindergarten? Because our students who enter the Language Institute have, in many cases, been enrolled someplace. It may not be continuous, but it becomes continuous when they have started and been in the U.S. education system, whether that be in our school or someone else's school in a different district. So what are we calling continuously enrolled? And are we leaving that open for interpretation?
Trustee Brown, when we get through tonight, we're going to answer that question. There's several places that it answers it. Because it goes bottom line, it looks at that transcripts to see where those students were before and looking at those transcripts.
Do we want to keep moving through 7 through 12? All right.
Number 7, general education students seeking enrollment or who will turn 20 by the end of academic year will be referred to adult education. Number 8, an enrollment decision must be made by the site administration within 5 school days of receiving a complete Modesto City Schools enrollment packet. The applicant, if over age 18 or the applicant's parent guardian, shall be notified in writing within 5 school days of receiving a complete Modesto City Schools enrollment packet if the student is denied enrollment. If denied enrollment, the applicant, if age 18 or over, or the applicant's parent guardian, must appeal in writing to the superintendent or designee within 15 district days at the date of the written decision by site administration. The superintendent designee's appeal decision will be made within 10 district days once the written appeal is received. The superintendent designee's decision shall be final.
Are there any questions on that part? Trustee Brown.
Yes, the time period that's designated here, is this by code? Or is there law that states that it has to be done within that time period?
It is not code. We were trying to get the decision made quickly for the students, so that this is only for a student that is denied enrollment, so that puts it on the school to make it the decision in 5 days from the enrollment. Then that student that's been denied has 15 days to notify in writing that they would like to go to the next to appeal it to the superintendent or designee. Then that superintendent or designee has 10 days to respond to that appeal.
You want to talk about that?
So does that also apply to any placement of any grade level placement, or only this?
If this is only for a denial into enrollment, if you're asking the placement of where that student is placed,
I don't think we have anything that sets
at
up
this
a
point, we
procedure.
don't have a procedure for that.
Okay, so this is
This is if
an
there's
absolute
a
denial.
No, this is if there's a denial by the school administration, then it gives the parent and the student a right to go to the superintendent. It just means that a decision needs to be made pretty quickly,
Okay.
so that they know where they stand pretty
So
quickly.
I guess what I'm asking
I
is,
hear what you're-
does a parent have the same right
If they
of a
don't like where the
quick
child
answer?
is placed.
I can see
regarding
where you're
placement.
going with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for tonight.
Yeah,
is to
I think
get
that's a
those
great idea.
proposed comments, so that I'm taking those notes right now.
Thank
so
you.
that when we bring it back in June, that could be added.
What do you think of, Trustee Brown, what do you think of having a similar type procedure that we've set forth here? If a parent objects to where the child has been placed, then a similar type of appeal procedure, so there's some certainty and that they would know timeline.
I think parents are due that right.
I
and-
think so.
And we need to
But
make
do you
sure
like
that
this timeline?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
can I chime in there quickly? Only because I think the other case you're also talking about here, Trustee Brown, is similar to, and this is where it gets tricky, when a parent, based on ed code from what I'm aware of, a parent can say, I want my child pushed into this class because I think they're ready. And I guess an example would be in a higher level math class, even though we've slotted them somewhere else. The parent still has the right to appeal that decision to push that child into an advanced class. And so then there has to be this meeting of the minds that say, okay, but your student's not ready, but we're going to talk to you and see if we can work our way through this. Because a parent does have a right to say, I want my child in advanced AP blah, whereas every teacher is telling you, no, they're not ready for AP blah, but you as a parent can still push them in, and you pull this conversation back and say, no, maybe you should pull it back, but a parent, you can still do that and do what I would consider put your child in a difficult position. But as parents, you have a right, and we can go look that up, and I'm willing to bet that's going to be in a different policy.
I think so.
That doesn't feel like a grade level placement policy.
No.
Okay.
Can I just
This is admission policy and grade level placement after admission. Yes. That student is already admitted.
And that's one just by a course. But what I heard here was placement for grade.
Right.
And that's
After
what I put in my
enrollment.
notes. So I just want to make sure I was
Yeah.
clarifying that.
All right.
Number 11, correct?
Any other questions or comments from the board on that section?
There's that one.
Any other comments? What do you guys think about the timeline? I think it's, I mean, if staff thinks they can do it, I think it's good to have that kind of tight timeline.
I like it because it comes out to 30 days.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think that that's reasonable to say that if something started, that by the end of a month that you would have an answer and a conclusion. And I think that's reasonable given what's being placed in front of us, that by the end of a calendar month you would know where you're at and what has happened versus being strung out for longer times or moving too quickly, I think is also a problem.
Okay, then I guess the last section then?
Evidence of the student age may include a certified copy of a birth certificate or a statement by the local registrar or county recorder certifying the date of birth, a duly attested baptism certificate, a passport. When none of the foregoing is obtainable, the parent guardian may provide any other appropriate means of providing the age of child. Education Code 48002. A complete list is provided in MCS Information Handbook. The reason we suggest this inclusion, Gamut only suggests these 3, but Ed Code suggests a few more. So we are going not just to put them in the AR, but we will put them in our information handbook that goes to the parents. And if you go to the next page, which is enrollment requirements, Modesto City Schools enrollment requirements.
Okay.
This will not be recommended to be put in a board policy. Sorry, this is not in your AR. You would have to see it on the screen or your PowerPoint.
It's just in the PowerPoint.
Because it's not being recommended in a board policy or an AR.
And this that's because this changes readily by legislature or?
It all goes by state. There's some of it's state law, some of it is Ed Code, and this is really for the parents and sharing with the parents. So it's not something that needs to go in board policy or AR. It's really what we need to get out to parents.
So this would be in the parent handbook that every parent, every
Yep.
student gets in our district within that first week of school, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's thick and it's in Spanish and it's in English.
English.
And
One half of it's called Conduct Code, one half is called Information Handbook.
yeah.
It will be in the Information Handbook stage, and that shows the information of what they need to receive.
And most students are, just so the public knows and the rest of the board that doesn't have kids in the district, students are required to bring back the form saying that the parents seen this and then sign it. You know what I'm talking about? And so this is something that we make sure that they have seen, or at least bring that back in, and teachers are monitoring that, and we appreciate that.
And this is also online as well on the website.
Yep.
Because that's where I go to look at it, generally because the book is hard to flip through. but it's also on the website, which makes it easier to search.
All right.
Would you like me to review it or move?
I think we can read it up there. Does anybody have any questions on that? Well, all right. So are there any more discussions from the board, or do we want to go to the public? I'm thinking now is probably a good time to get some input on the public for AR 5111. Yeah, use your microphone. Go ahead and say that. Say that to Trustee Grambo. He's saying I did announce that at the beginning, that these policies are for all students in the district. This is not just for. I know we have a large number of people here from the Language Institute. This is for all students. We're trying to, as the discussion went on, we're trying to accommodate a student, any student in our district, particularly a retained student, foster student, a student that moves into the district, and so this is other than a special education student.
Yep.
I saw you looking at me saying, you got to put that in, Amy. So other than a special education student, which would be governed by other rules, which Mr. Herbst can talk to that better than any of us, but this is for a general education student in the district, and so these policies cover everybody. Thank you for bringing that up, Trustee Grambo and Trustee Walker.
Before we go to the public, I just want to take a moment to thank Ms. Mack and Interim Superintendent Redquist and all the others who have worked on this, because I don't know that everybody is aware how tedious this is. And I've been sort of digging through these board policies off and on for about 18 months. And it is slow, it is time consuming, it is tedious. You have to jump back and forth between Gamut and what we have versus what's been updated. And I think that unless you've done it, you don't realize how much work it really is. And I just want to make sure that the thanks go out first, because as you have sort of looked through with me over the last sort of 5 or 6 months as we've talked about this, it's a huge amount of work, and it ought to be thanked because it is hard. And I want to make sure we get that out before we go anywhere else.
Thank you. And I would really like to thank the Ed Services team, because I couldn't have done this without them. So thank you.
Great. All right. Yeah, thank you. All right. So we'll, I'm going to give 3 minutes to each speaker to speak. Is there anyone in the public that would like to talk about AR 5111? If I could see hands so I could kind of plan for how many. I think I'm seeing. Okay, so if we're gonna go under like if we're gonna go 10, then I can give 3 minutes each. But if we're gonna go to 20, then I'm gonna give 2 minutes each. So so there's gonna be more policies we're gonna be discussing. So I saw about 15 kind of waffly, some certain hands, but then some waffly. So let's go with 2 minutes right now. If I could see hands, firm hands for wanting to speak on this, that would be good. Yeah. I'm sorry, Trustee Brown.
I have a question that's going to be point of clarification.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I know I've already been told that we're going to be addressing some issues that are very specific to the Language Institute and placement of new students. How can we be sure that we're making sure that the comments that we're hearing are directed to the issues at hand when we haven't discussed those other issues yet?
Well, all the comments right now that I'm looking for are just on this policy. So those of you just raise your hand that would like to talk about AR 5111 that we just discussed, and that's really where we're talking about. Very good point. Thank you, Trustee Brown. That's really where we want to talk about. So thank you for those of you who keep raising your firm hands. Can I see it again so I can plan? I'm getting like 11, 12, maybe 15. Okay, we're going to do 2 minutes each. And so because we do have other things to discuss, so it's just AR 5111. So the first speaker, the first hand I saw was Ms. Barrera. So if you want to come up. 2 minutes. Yeah, so Ms. Masters, are we timing for 2 minutes then? Thank you. And if anyone needs an interpreter, we do give double the time for that if you bring someone up and would like to, if we do have a Spanish interpreter, but if there's another language you need and you have someone with you, we do give double the time. So just let us know and we'll accommodate. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Acting Superintendent. Thank you for this draft or revising the BP and AR board policies and regulations. Thank you for now paying attention to what should have already been adopted under the local control funding formula, ALCAP. So thank you for 4 years later. We're now paying attention to a new revised for all children. Reality begins with the families and the community when at the school sites and the districts do not follow the policies and regulations. So my question would be to the who, what, where, when, and why, backing these policies and procedures, do you have the protocols and procedures to back up the policies and regulations for the parents? Because we just talked about right here where it's so simple to appeal. I have families that are still waiting under the UCP appeals. And so this is very important if we're working within a 30-day time frame. Do us parents have some sort of a form to fill out on an appeal? Can one be drafted as we drafted the UCP form? That seems to work real well. If we can just continue to give us families, community, policies and regulations as you're adopting these new protocols and procedures. Everything needs to be combined together. Thank you.
And again, we're not voting on anything tonight. We are just taking input, so a form would be great. That's your great input. Thank you, Ms. Barrera. Okay. Now, second, yes, right here in the white shirt. Good evening.
My name is Erica Watson. I have been the soccer coach at Davis High School for 6 years. And as I look at this, specifically in the verbiage in items 5 and 6, continuously enrolled to me speaks of separation between those who have been educated here in the U.S. and educated in other countries. With that being said, I have a couple things I would like to say. How many of us would like to think that if we were born and alive during major historical events, we would have been on the side of what is right? I would have been an abolitionist. I would have hidden and helped Jews escape from Germany. I would have rode that bus with Rosa Parks, and I would have burned my bra with Gloria Steinem. But we are at a potential paradigm shift now. The policies being discussed today will either enhance the lives of our citizens, enriching the lives of our children and grandchildren, or be chalked up in the history books of the future to describe the possible causes of the greater factionalism of the American culture. Your purpose, per your website, is to stress academics and character education. Within character education, you need to include our culture and our assimilation. By denying an 18-year-old child admittance into our public school system and say you have to go to an adult education means that you are going to be separate from us. And we are causing problems within our culture by saying you have to be separate. Just like they did in the 60s when they told African Americans, you have to go to school separately. Well, newsflash, separate is not equal. 18 years old should still be in a public high school, and if you're going to allow continuous enrollment up to age 20 for American citizens, then you need to allow it for immigrants as well. Thank you.
Next hand. Yes, Ms. Herrera.
Yes, hi. It's actually Dr. Herrera now.
Congratulations.
So actually, I actually wanted to ask I suppose a clarifying question. So Ms. Mack was mentioning, and actually it kind of pertains to Trustee Brown's question as well. So when he was asking about whether, if a parent had the right to hold back a child, from kindergarten level or first grade level, could they do that? And so Ms. Mack said yes. The only thing that would basically, what would need to happen is that there would be notes taken, and that a parent would just have to be completely aware that their child is being held back. And so I'm just curious if there is any law that differentiates between whether the parent right at the kindergarten, first, second grade level, if he or she doesn't feel like their child is cognitively ready to advance, if there's any differentiating law between that parent of that school age child versus a parent of a child at the high school level. And if so, I suppose if there is one, I'd like, just let me know. But then also, would the discussion be as simple as Ms. Mack, referenced? So if I am a mother of a 9th grader and I do not feel like my daughter is cognitively ready to advance or to continue, and I say, you know what, my daughter is not ready to advance to 10th grade, can I keep her back at 9th grade to continue, acquiring her skills and ensure that she's got the full length of time to access not only, properly access and successfully pass her courses, but then if she wants to pursue, secondary education options, I want her to wait. I want that extra year. So would all it mean would be just a conversation and then a quick yes, or as long as you know, Dr. Herrera.
Well, Ms. Mack, would you be able to address that, or maybe this is something we would need to think about adding additional policy?
I can share what research says.
Sure.
And research says, and we do have a policy under retention,
Okay.
and that is considered retention. And research is showing that kids do not graduate because if they're held back. So more and more students were held back in the years past, but kids are not being held back anymore because research shows that if we retain kids, that they are not graduating when they should be graduating. Or even if you're given more time, they're not graduating, they're dropping out. They're becoming dropouts. And research shows that. And so that is what the district goes by. We also have a retention policy, which is not being presented tonight.
Okay. Do we have the board rep?
5123.
But is
Okay.
there a differentiation then between a person of a kindergarten or first grade student that could ask for that retention? And
You wanna
then
come
that
to the
simple
microphone?
meaning of, as long as you understand, right? Is there a difference between that parent of that age of a child versus a parent at the 9th grade, 10th grade level?
The example.
Come to the podium, Dr. Herrera.
The example that I
the
shared with
differences,
Trustee Brown was for only a TK student.
Okay.
And a lot of, when a kid's starting school, because the law does not say a student has to go to school until they're 6 years old. So we do that when a parent's requesting it for a TK student or a kindergartner, because the law does not say they have to go to school. Once that happens afterwards, it's a retention.
Okay.
And our district does not support retention because the research does not say a student, it does not support holding a student back or going back age.
Okay. Okay. So research, but
and
then so does code
This is-
say anything different?
But this is really not an admission. What we're talking about is admission policy and placement.
Right.
So what you're talking about is retention. So that's already a student that's already in the district and so
No, actually, so my question is basically would be, as we further discuss the grade, I guess, placement policy, I'm curious if a parent is not happy with the grade in which their student is
we've
placed,
already
if
discussed
they
we
can
would
have,
placement. We would have a procedures put in place. Trustee Brown just brought that up about having a procedure put in place where they would have a right to appeal that decision.
indeed. So I'm curious if it's just that easy of a conversation as Ms. Mack
No,
had
it
with
would be
that
a
TK.
procedure like it is in enrollment. No, it would be something that would be, a written decision. That's what we anticipate probably writing in something like that would mirror the appeal decision rights that are in. That's what I just heard us talking about. That would mirror what's in the which you could see in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of this policy. So it would probably mirror something like that in terms of having a dispute with a placement decision.
I think it would also mirror, because I think we're still talking about retention versus admission.
Yeah, this is admission.
But
What
I
we're
think
talking about right now.
the flip side of that would be my experience with my daughter, which is the opposite of retention, which was advancement. And I had a second grader who was ready for third grade 6 weeks in.
Right.
That policy that took us from getting her from second grade to third grade took the good part of 3 months, and she had it and it wasn't this district, it was Sylvan. But that process was worked out between us as parents, the school site principal, Sylvan district office, and what eventually got worked out was my second grader took every single second grade test that they could give her, and she passed them. And then there was a second interview about, are you emotionally ready, which is completely separate from this subject, which is a different policy. And I think what me and Trustee Brown were not talking about was not somebody being held back in kindergarten, but doing what I also thought about as a parent was, should I keep my youngest home because her birthday's late in the year and give her another year before kindergarten, which again is admission, not retention or advancement.
Well,
and so I think they're different.
Well, no, I understand.
Policies.
I guess when it comes to us and the program, and the reason why we're here and advocating is it is the same for us in a lot of ways. So the admission process is very much the pivotal moment for our kids, because where we don't see it, you can't be retained when you've never started something, I suppose, right? So you can't be in a negative or not, be needing. Let me see. Additional. So retention to me seems like as a negative action, and so I don't really see it. I see it as the same thing, I suppose.
We're not talking about retention.
Well, you. Okay. All right. That's fine. Maybe I obviously didn't articulate myself well enough, but hopefully in the next question I will.
Okay.
To get to the answer, but unfortunately, I heard you say that a lot of the questions, at least a couple of some that Trustee Brown was going to get to, you wouldn't be talking about until after we leave, and I'm just curious as to why.
No, we're going to talk about later tonight as we keep going. Yeah,
okay.
there's different policies. This is just strictly admission. So,
all right.
So if we could, we do have other speakers.
Yeah, right.
But
No, I
thank
gotcha.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Mataka.
Good evening, John Mataka. I just had a few points. I also am concerned with number 6 that deals with not currently enrolled in the district, age 18, not yet 20. And my concern deals with the immigrant farm working youngsters that come into the district and who move around a lot, who might have many, in a year's time, might hit 2-3 schools in a year's time. And my concern is I want to make sure that there's some kind of language in here that takes that into consideration, because it's a matter of economics for the family and it's a matter of survival. And I don't think that they should be, denied admission as long as, they meet some of the other requirements. So I just like to see that tweaked a little bit and looked into and taken into consideration the fact that you have families that go to 2-3 schools a year sometimes, and then they end up here. So that needs to be looked at. The other thing I want to say is I want to know who the designees are. The final decision ultimately comes with the superintendent of the district, and that's all good. I know because that's why he's the superintendent of the district. But I want to know who the designees are. And if you got to have 2 of them and spell them out, then that's fine. But I don't like the idea of not knowing who the ultimate decision is. It's fine with the superintendent, but if there's going to be a designee, I want to know who that is. And I want to know that they're qualified to be the designee. It's not, no offense to a clerk, but a clerk or something. And the other thing I want to say is that this part about the enrollment requirements, if that's not going to be part of the policy, get it out of there. You got so much paperwork here already, it's confusing to the public. I know it's confusing to me. So it's not going to be part of it. Why you don't even put it in there? And one last thing. I hope that after all this discussion, before the final thing is taken into consideration, that there will be a public meeting so that the parents can have one final say. Thank you.
Ms. Mack, would you be able to answer this question about who a designee would be? Probably be you.
Probably be me, depending on the superintendent's call. But in this situation, it's about instruction, so it'd be the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services.
And that's fine, but it should be spelled out as that. It should say the Associate Superintendent of Instruction or whatever. So it's not a question.
All right. All right, over here, that's the first thing I saw.
Good afternoon. My name is Anita Villaseñor, and I'm actually a counselor at Davis High School, actually the EL counselor, and I am very honored to work at Davis. I get to work with culture, right? Multicultural every single day. I feel like I have to pinch myself working with Language Institute kids. The reason that I wanted to come up is because I wanted to ask, if we're talking about admissions, I'm having to enroll these kids every single day, right? When they come in. I want to know when it will be addressed about that 17-year-old kid that comes with zero education out of the country. I want to know that kid that comes with no transcripts, their first time in school ever, at all. They obviously need the extra, They obviously need the extra time not only to get a high school diploma, but we're looking at those kids that want to be career and A through G ready. They want that opportunity because they never had it the first time. Those are the kids that I work with every day. They're not looking for that second opportunity. They're looking for that first opportunity. They came here to fulfill their American dream. I want to be able to sit and look at their faces and give them a plan. I feel like at this time, I'm just looking at them and I'm in limbo. Mr. Walker talked about his child being emotionally ready. Some of these kids are not emotionally ready. Even if they're 18, 17, they're coming from trauma, escaping war, organized crime, gang life. And so there's a lot of trauma and they're emotionally not ready. Language Institute, they not only find a family, they found the support for them to actually get the strength to continue with their dreams. And they feel we are a family. We're the first people that give them that opportunity. And so I'm very proud to work with every one of them because I learn from them more than I will ever teach them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mack, would you be able to address the 17-year-old question that she asked? I think maybe it would be helpful for the audience.
Well, a 17-year-old, depending on when their birthday is, could be in 11th grade, so 16, 17-year-old. Then they go into 17, 18 in the 12th grade year. And in a moment, we're going to talk about 5th year. They could qualify for a 5th year. Along with that, if we're talking about Language Institute, our district already has a longer day. So they're getting more credits than another student. So they're already getting more at Language Institute. So they have the possibility of graduating with a diploma, which is our goal, by that 5th year. It's a possibility, depending on the student. I can't speak specifically for that student because she's stated that there's 0 units or credits, but depending on when their birthday is, they might still have that possibility because in a moment, when we get to it, we are going to talk about 5th year and how a student can qualify for 5th year.
All right. All right, Ms. Bird.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Bird, coordinator at the Language Institute. I've spoken with many of you over the years about the age issue and how it's impacted our program. And since March of 2016, our focus has been on using federal and state Title III policy to guide the students that Ms. Villaseñor just referred to, students who've never had any formal education or come with significant gaps. Title III policy was written in order to address this without mandating it upon you. And it states immigrant and refugees in the country less than 3 years should have access up until age 21. So if you think about that, you could have a 17-year-old as a freshman and still have the ability to have the full 4 years that all students in our system receive. I understand the burden that you have representing such a large and diverse student population in Modesto City schools, But I also want to remind us that it's not about equality, it's about equity. What does each individual student need in order to meet their ultimate goal? The special populations you referred to who have protections, such as foster youth and special education students, didn't get those protections out of goodwill. It came from in the trenches strife and struggle, just like what we're doing. And we're working with Sacramento to unfortunately attempt to mandate that this unique student population be recognized so that school districts and students do not have to go through what we've had to go through the past few years. That being said, item 3, where it's the foreign transcripts for my students would be interpreted and plugged in to determine their grade history, causes me grave concern because that requires a lot of cultural competency as to the grades and the system from which that student was coming. Later tonight, you might have the privilege of meeting Jasmine Ocampo. She's here. Many of you heard about the situation she went through with her Filipino transcripts. I would hate for that to happen to any other Language Institute student. I also want to remind you that our graduation rate is based on a 4-year cohort. So when we enroll by age and we do not allow students the full 4 years, we're deeming these kids dropout statistically from the moment they arrive. We are dooming Davis High's graduation rate based on our inability to make equitable policy, and I don't think that's fair for our student or the reputation for our high school for the entire community. Thank you.
I think we're going to have someone on staff address some of those issues you brought up. Thank you, Ms. Bird.
Drop out. Can you turn to that slide that I have? No, the one Melanie. Okay. This is to address the comment about the dropout rate. I think there's a misunderstanding how the dropout rate works for the dashboard and in the California. So I have Senior Director, Director Melanie McCleary to address this.
So the dashboard comes from the California Department of Ed, and for the last 5 to 6 years, the cohort graduation is determined by that cohort, and this is the Modesto City Schools. Those students that were in the district or are excluded if they've left the district during their high school years. But those that have finished with us or not, they're reported into 4 different areas. So in the first column, the number of students that met all of the graduation requirements at the end of their senior year. And that's called your graduation rate. So it takes that cohort of that group divided by that total number of cohort to get that cohort rate. Next, the California Department of Ed gets credit for a subset of the special ed students that the California Department of Ed has said if they complete these graduation requirements, they will be issued a certificate of completion. So those students are counted in their own little group right there, and so we're giving credit by the California Department of Ed for that subgroup. Then a student who's completed their senior year, and we know that they are still enrolled, meaning coming back maybe for a 5th year. Those students then are given credit for still seeking those services to within the district, and they're counted in that yellow cohort called still enrolled. Last, the students that for whatever the reason have not been able to complete their graduation requirements, they're not still enrolled or they're not counted in the completer, the special ed completer, they then are counted as a dropout. So you can see if you take the cohort graduation rate in the green and add the cohort dropout rate, they do not equal 100% because California Department of Ed is giving us credit in all 4 of those areas.
So long and the short of it is that, is this impacting Davis's graduation rate or not? I mean, is it?
Well, it depends on the particular student. So if we have a student in any of our high schools, even in the Language Institute, any of our high schools, who's completed the senior year, and if they haven't met the graduation requirements or if they're not a special ed completer and they're not still enrolled,
but if they get a 5th
program,
year,
then they would be in the yellow still enrolled column.
So it wouldn't negatively impact the graduation
Correct.
rate?
It would not.
Okay. Does that answer, kind of clear that up?
The question specifically was about the dropout rate. They are not counted in the dropout rate,
right.
And that is the confusion. that number does not change. Then the next year, if they graduate as a fifth year, they never do change our graduation rate. It does never change. It only stays for that specific year. So they would have to graduate in that year to count as a cohort.
Okay.
But a cohort still enrolled, that fifth year student will never help the graduation rate. It does help the student, and our goal is to help the student.
Right. All right. Anyone else in the audience? I saw other hands. Ms. Lidke. Oh, I'm sorry. You were coming up, Gladys Williams. Okay. Yeah, she was next. I'm sorry. I just didn't see her behind the podium that time.
Good evening, board. My name is Tony Litke, and I teach physical education at Davis High School. And I'm here to offer you a different perspective of things. We love our Language Institute kids. We love them. We love all of the students. We, as a PE department, are concerned with the age factor. Point simple, age 21. Our first concern involving age 21 is one's physical strength. A 21-year-old is physically developed much more than a student who is 15. All of our classes are mixed. Freshmen are included in some classes with seniors. So most of our PE classes, about 85 to 90%, are totally mixed. Okay, so you've got the whole gamut of ages. So therefore, a 21-year-old adult playing a game with a younger student may be too strong, and there would be potential for the younger student to get hurt. Think about basketball, think about soccer. These stronger, larger people at age 21 have a whole lot more physically than a kid that might be 15 years old in our class. The California Interscholastic Federation Governing Board for High School Sports in California, age limit to participate in high school athletics is 19 years old. So they have to start the sport before they're 19. So if they're, they have to start it. So 19 is a cutoff. And the rationale for that is because the kids are stronger and faster. And they do not want the peers, obviously, who are younger to get hurt. Okay, so therefore, we do not believe that a 21-year-old student should be physically playing with younger students, including 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds. Our second concern with the age factor is that we do not believe that it's a good idea for a 21-year-old man to be in a class with a 15-year-old female. We believe that the younger age of a female student grouped with a 21-year-old man is not a good idea. We are looking at potential acts of an adult to a juvenile. We would not personally want our 14-year-old age daughters to be in a class with a 21-year-old man. Our third concern is another one that's just common sense. A 21-year-old student may write their own note, just as an 18-year-old can, go to the store and legally buy alcohol, legally purchase marijuana. The age of 21 may open the door for students to come to school and share a product with other students. Perhaps.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, your time has expired,
Well,
but thank you
cool.
so much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Williams.
Hello. Trustee Walker, I want to thank you for the policy that you have written, but I also want to remind people in the audience that we have a conduct code, and whoever's in school has to live by that conduct code. So we should not be concerned about alcohol and drugs because you will be set under the same standards for that. However, I would like to see us consider some kind of policy that we develop for our newcomers, because they come under a whole different category. Just like our special ed students, we have policy for them. I'm not clearly understanding why we're not looking at a policy that is inclusive for newcomers so that we can help them be successful. I'm thinking about my own personal experience this year. I have a 5th grade class where I have a student who has just come from Mexico who speaks no English. I am teaching him English. He is learning to read at the 1st grade level. He is doing a 1st grade curriculum in 5th grade, and he will go to 6th grade next year. Still progressing at a 1st grade level, probably coming out at a 2nd grade level. These are students who are immigrants. They have come here for that big purpose of getting an education. And we live in a country where we have the affordability to help these students succeed, to fulfill their dream. And I encourage us to look at a policy that will be inclusive of our newcomers, that doesn't put them under the same constraints as we have our regular students coming into Modesto City Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Can I just say that my board policies are in Mr. Rickwood's inbox still. This was Miss Mack's work in the education department, so but I appreciate it, and just so that I don't get credit for what I didn't do.
All right. You want to come forward?
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarafa Asadullah. Well, I am not in the Language Institute, but I support my friends, which they're all in the Language Institute. So they're basically saying that okay, I'm 18, I'm going to be 19 next year. I've been going through the regular classes and everything. So they're saying that they're going to kick me out of school, send me to an adult school when I'm 19 next year, which I have like, what does this mean? I just don't get it. Like, when I'm 19, like, they're going to kick me out of school. How is it inappropriate for a 14 and a 15 or 19 being in the same classroom? I don't find like anything wrong with that. The 15-year-old in that classroom is the one that's going to teach that 19-year-old that doesn't speak English something bad or something wrong. How is that student that doesn't speak any English will sell them marijuana or anything like that? How is it? They don't speak English. They came here with a dream. They came here with a dream. They want to achieve their goals. They have dreams for their future. They want to have a good future. I know I have witnessed a lot of Language Institute students that are in college and good colleges that are making a good future for themselves, for their family, and for our nation, which is United States. Like, how is it? That's my concern. That's my thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to remind speakers that we're just talking about the admission policy at this point. What she was addressing would probably be the 5th year policy. And so that we're not there yet. We got to move on, people. So just 2 more speakers. Mr. Piersdorf.
If there's, I'd defer to one of these young people if there's a student. If you're only going to take 2 more. Or I'll just take 30 seconds. How about that? And then you can have the other minute and a half. Here's what I just want to say. There's no board policy. I'm looking ahead and reference to Chad's question. Like, I don't see an administrative regulation regarding these eligible immigrant students. I don't see a board policy regarding these eligible immigrant students. I see 5th year student, which may or may not apply. And I see adult ed, which definitely doesn't apply. So I would encourage the board to work on an eligible immigrant student board policy so it's clear and it's legal and it's specific and that these kids can be accommodated.
As we stated at the beginning of the meeting, this policy would apply to all Language Institute students and to all students in the district. We're looking to create a policy that would cover everyone, a more broader policy. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mariam Rohani, and it's been 2 years I came to United States. And 2 years ago, me and my sister was trying to get an enrollment in a Davis High School, but I was the one who was eligible for the school, but my sister was denied, and she have to go to adult school. And it's since she don't have enough credit for math and English, and he have to go to college, and it's take her I think she's gonna graduate from college on 2022, which is like a lot of times for her. And every night almost every night before she go to sleep, always asking me, like, Miriam, what do you think? What's gonna happen to my future? Like, when it's like a lot of time to take me just to take a bath, like, just take a, 2 years degree instead of 4 years degree. It's a lot of time. So I was like thinking, it's make me very sad or very feel sorrow for her, because like I'm the one who is younger than her, and I'm the one who is graduating earlier than her. But she's the one who is take her a lot of time to graduate, and just make me very sad for her. And I'm just asking, like, what will happen to her future if she cannot go to school for instead of 4 years degree, and she have to go to adult school, and she would not have enough credit for that. So yeah, that's my opinion about it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I've seen two hands in the back, Dr. Zambo and then Joy Koski. Both of you have had your hand up the whole time. So which one of you? If you both want to come up, that's fine. You both come up. And again, just on the admission policy, please, because we do need to move on to the next one.
Good evening, Joy Koski, Davis High School. I'm the AVID site coordinator, and I want to speak on behalf of AVID program. AVID program school-wide leadership expectation is that we will set the vision and tone that promotes college readiness and high expectations for all students in my school. I need to provide evidence that I'm doing that. Part of that is Section 8, barriers to access and equity. The principal and school leadership team implement a plan throughout the school to confront barriers and equity in school policies and written documents, and ensure that student enrollment in rigorous college prep courses reflects school demographics. That includes, in my school, a newcomer school that is embedded in our comprehensive high school that is an award-winning program. It is my job to, when a child is admitted, to work with the Language Institute to get them into AVID as soon as possible to get them college ready, and to create plans that help them get there. I have an issue with retention statistics being used in relationships to Language Institute students who may need an additional year and be enrolled at a lower grade level even though their age doesn't match the grade level, because show me some statistics. We are keeping a newcomer in longer to let them be A to G and graduate. Show me the statistics that's saying that doesn't work, because newcomer programs are doing this all over the place. This is why it works, because we need to do it. And we need to ignore those retention statistics that may be true for a different population, a younger population, but for this newcomer population, it's very important that we consider putting a student who's older in a younger grade so we can get them there. And you know what? You show me a 20-year-old that wants to graduate and go to college, send them to my classroom. I would love it. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Janine Zambo. I'm a former Davis staff member, but I'm now helping out social science teachers. One of the statements that was made was that this admissions policy does not address this population. So my suggestion is that maybe this policy is incomplete, that we need to do something more, because I'm just reflecting back on, at great expense, the district brought to us Dr. Pedro Noguera a couple of years ago, and thinking about his book on equity in education, addressing the issues that some of our most vulnerable students, and a lot of the students that we're talking about in reflecting this admissions policy in our newcomer program, have suffered incredible traumas, and they're coming to us. They are our most vulnerable students. And he says that while schools may not be able to counter harmful effects that arise from outside conditions, schools are more likely to be able to create strategies to counter and even mitigate these conditions. We have the obligation to support young people and appropriate to their circumstances. Our public school system was built upon the premise of educating a democratic citizenry and developing immigrants, or assimilating them, or indoctrinating them, or whatever perspective you'd like to take. But this policy will not achieve these ends if these students aren't addressed.
So we bring it back to the board so we can continue on. Would you like to discuss this policy further, or we have a number of other policies to go through tonight. what I'm looking for direction from where everybody's at. Trustee West.
I just want to know kind of where we're going with this, because will we be addressing this issue at any point tonight, or should we do it now?
We're basically taking input from the public. It hasn't gone to cabinet, and we're just looking at the admission policy at this point. A lot of comments were off the topic of that, but it needs to go to cabinet, and then it would come back to the board for a first read, and then we would have a second read on it. So this is going to come back to the board 2 more times. Cabinet's going to do some revision. We've already suggested some ideas of what things need to be done. So there's going to be additional things that would be added to it. Would you like to add something else?
I just feel, I don't know if adding a separate piece, as was suggested by Mr. Pierstoff, or if it's going to be addressed within this policy, but I just feel we need to do something to address this issue. And I don't know if it's coming, if we're going to be discussing it later, but personally, I feel we really do need to do something to make sure that this issue is addressed at some point.
Can I try here and just, I think part of the issue is, and again, I've been looking at policies for 2 years now, is that a policy addresses a tiny topic. And if we dig into this, if you go look at Gamut on 51111 and versus what we have as an outline here, there's going to be 16 more board policies embedded within that policy that are going to take you to a different policy. Each one of those policies is potentially going to take you to another policy. And so I don't think it's a good idea to push in a bunch of separate topics into a single policy. They're going to get picked up by the 5th year senior policy. They'll get picked up by retention policies, by promotion policies. There's HR policies that tie back to these. There's graduation. So I guess what I'm saying is that we're not going to get to a point where a 5111 policy is going to cover everything that's being discussed, because that's not how they work. What they do is they interweave. And so you have one policy that talks about one thing and references you back to another one. And then that policy may reference you to another piece that says, here's where you pick up this other piece. And that's going to take a minute to accomplish, because there's quite a few of them. And I think that's where we sort of need to take a step back as a governance team and a board and understand that this is a process that we're going to build upon, if that makes sense.
Trustee Brown.
So procedurally, I'd like to hear what else is before us tonight, but I think that is going to give us an opportunity to circle back. I too feel like we need to address this population with some very carefully crafted language that creates opportunities and doesn't eliminate this opportunity for equity. So I'm all in favor of making sure that we strengthen our policies to address their needs, but let's hear what else is before us tonight before we circle back and try to address how we do that.
Okay, Trustee West. Excuse me, we're talking as a board right now. We'd like to hear from you, but we'll come back out to the public in a few minutes. Sure. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. I just want to make sure that the language that we put into place doesn't tie our hands. I think it's important that we put in here language that will allow us to address individual needs. And that's what I'm concerned about, because some of the needs that we're hearing don't fit into some of the way the policy is written. And so I just want to make sure that it's written so that we can look at individual situations, because sometimes one size doesn't fit all.
And that's why there's an appeal right. That's why it's going to go up to the superintendent. That's why it would have that second review. And so we've built that in to the policy. So there is a chance for a give on it. And to quickly make that determination so that the student can move on or get enrolled. So Trustee Brown?
Yeah, I'm thinking that this is not an appeal issue. This is more a policy directive AR issue that we need to address, a common need of many students. rather than wait and have each one of them be forced to take the time of the administration and the parents to try to appeal something that excuse me, something that we should have in place that allows opportunity.
Okay. Are there any more? All right. Let's move on to the next policy. I believe we're going to go to 6146.
Eamon, I think she wanted to speak and got kind of overlooked. So can she have her voice? 2 minutes. Let's get the L money.
Okay, on the admission policy only, if that's what she's going to talk about, that's fine.
She was admission.
Thank you.
got her
Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Halima. I came from Afghanistan.
Go closer, baby.
Thank you.
I'll stand with you. She's nervous.
Thank you so much. I came from Afghanistan. We went to school in Afghanistan every single day. When I came here, I went to Davis High School, and then I started getting my education in here. I counted as a junior, and then now I'm senior. I need 1 more year to graduate from school, super senior year. I just asking, like, it's not my 5th year, it's not my 4th year. I just want 1/3 year to graduate, and the way they're saying, like, it's dangerous. The students are dangerous for classes or PE classes. I'm taking PE classes right now, and then you can ask my teacher if you want to. Do you think I'm dangerous for the person who is more taller than me, 15 years old, and more taller than me? He is playing with me. Do you think I want to suggest him to use marijuana or cigarette or whatever? I just want to just graduate because I want to be someone, to be a voice of someone who is like me. That's my goal. Thank you. Thank you for giving me.
All right. Thank you for sharing your story tonight. All right. This takes us back, Ms. Mack. If we continue on with the presentation, I think this takes us to 6140, Board Policy 6146.
There you go. You can do the whole. There you go. This next section, we are proposing change from Board Policy 6146. The reason there is no gamut 6146, so we're proposing to move some of the information into Board Policy 6146.1. And then we are also proposing change from AR 6146 to propose a change to AR 6146.1. along with change from Board Policy 5121.4 to propose change Board Policy 6146.3, along with change from AR 5121.4, propose change AR 6146.3. Specifically, in 6146.1 and 61.46 has the old Casey language. So if you notice your scratch outs, it's all the Casey language is being proposed to be scratched out.
Yay.
Yeah. New language. The Board of Trustees desires to prepare all students to obtain a high school diploma so that they can take advantage of opportunities for post-secondary education and employment. Propose keeping Medicine City School course requirements for comprehensive high school, continuation school, and adult school currently in the previous board policies and are different from gamut. Medicine City Schools course requirements are a higher rigor than gamuts. So at this point, we're recommending the language we currently have in 6146 to move over to 6146.1. So that's a little different than gamuts. New language exemptions and waivers, retroactive diplomas, all gamut language, which I'm not going to go in specifics tonight, but you have a copy of those. Board Policy 6146.1, instruction. This is talking about the 5th year student. It's not gamut. This is Medicine City's recommendation for a 5th year student. Recommended language, The Board of Education recognizes that there may be serious or compelling reasons why a general education student may not have fulfilled the requirements for graduation. Example 6146.A is an exhibit. It is in your pile. I don't have a copy of it on my PowerPoint. When students have not satisfactorily completed the requirements of the district, a student may petition for an extra semester or school year, called a fifth year. Exhibit 61461B. It's the fifth year petition form that is included in your packet. The district may elect to grant a continuously enrolled student and an additional summer school semester, traditional semester, or a school year in order for that student to earn a high school diploma. To continue, the following criteria would be considered to determine if the additional time will be granted. Petition to request a fifth year status, Exhibit 6146.1B, must be submitted within the first 10 school days of the fourth quarter of the 12th grade to the current high school principal. Students' attendance and discipline history would be considered. The nature and severity of the circumstances which impacted the student's ability to complete graduation requirements. Student will not turn 20 years of age during the petitioned fifth year. Student must be able to meet graduation requirements within the fifth year. Decisions will be made by the site principal within 10 school days of receiving the petition to request a fifth year status. The decision may be repealed to the superintendent designee within 10 school days of the principal's decision. Superintendent designee appeal decision will be made within 10 school days of receiving appeal. The superintendent designee's decision shall be final. And this goes into adult education. Did you want? This is added language.
Yeah, let's talk about the fifth year policy. I think that's come up so much. The rest of it's really, there isn't significant changes throughout the rest, is there?
Not in the board policy, but there is talking about the adult education.
So continuing education, continuing high school education, there's really no changes in that?
I'm sorry, are you looking at slide 23?
I'm looking at the policy. So I'm not.
That's the piece right there. This is stating that a student continually enrolled in Minnesota City Schools Comprehensive High School, their last semester or their senior year, and completed all requirements for a comprehensive diploma at Minnesota City Schools Adult Education Program by their 21st birthday. So if they are in their last semester at a comp site, they can move over to adult school and finish a comp site diploma. This is powerful because it's a different requirement for comp site instead of an adult school diploma.
So how would that work? Can you give an example of that?
So a student is enrolled in, for the example, we said some of these students are 20 or 21-year-old. Well, that wouldn't be a very good example. A student would be doing their senior year and they have a last semester. They choose to go to adult school or they age out. They can continue going to adult education program and continue to work on their comp site diploma. In a moment, we have an example of what that program would look at adult school, and it would provide language acquisition at adult school for those students that needed to still work on their language.
Would they get A to G?
They have the possibility to get A to G, and it would be the same similar A to G program that our G230 students receive in APEX. So yes, they could receive a to G requirements at adult school. Students do now.
Okay. Trustee Brown?
So I'm trying to take this apart and understand, do we have students other than our Language Institute students who are needing this fifth year, and what circumstances would bring that about? We need a policy that's going to apply across the board regardless of the situation.
That's what we're trying to work on tonight.
Okay, so
These policies that we're trying to work on tonight are all about all students, not just one.
I'm trying to understand what the situations might be other than what we
retained
see
student?
through the Language Institute.
Honestly, we have a large number of fifth-year students currently in all our sites. It's not a Davis or Language Institute situation. That we do, those students do qualify also at Language Institute, but that's why this is so important for all our students and general ed students, because this is not just an LI issue. We have students all through the district. I can't remember the exact number. Do you guys remember? It's a large number throughout our district, and it's not just a Davis High situation.
So
34 at each site.
30 to
Total.
40 at each site?
No, at Davis,
Total.
what are you saying?
Okay. Trustee West?
Thank you. I'm just looking at the board policy under A, and it gives, it's underlined, so it's a new, a suggestion of a new one under exemptions and waivers. And it does list foster youth, homeless, former juvenile court, child of a military family. So those are different categories of students who it's suggested are under that exemption and waiver. So it's possible we can add Language Institute, possibly.
So this could pick up the student of a farm worker.
It already covers
well.
them. It already covers them without even specifying it, so.
Yeah, but it needs to be specialized.
Okay, so to clarify, I think what Trustee Newman's getting at here, and I think what you're talking about versus what Trustee Brown is talking about, is this integration. The comments about foster youth, homeless youth, migrant youth, military children, that's specifically laid out because that's what the law says has to be done. It's required that we list them. And so that's different than what we're sort of talking about in a broad sense. For fifth-year students, we interact with them as a parent. There's not been a year that my daughter's been, not either one of my children have been in school, that we don't interact with fifth-year seniors, and they do a great job, and they play in the band, and they're on all of our different sites. I think there's a difference between having to include something in a board policy because it's legally required, similar to what we talked about last month with foster children in the last board meeting, which is similar to what has to be dealt with homeless children, military families, and migrant children. And so those are specific cases. And so we're required to write those into the board policies. But the admissions policy that we talked about tonight and the fifth-year policy that we're talking about that isn't included in Gamut is us taking the extra step to address the needs of the entire community. And so it's not writing a specific policy for a specific group. It's writing a specific policy that would cover all of our students in a fair and equitable way. And I think that's the trick here, is that we're saying be equitable, which means write a policy that would be fair for everybody, while we're saying, but we need to write a special policy somewhere else, which is tricky. But I wanted to make sure that there was understanding why that's included is because it's legally required to be included. And then the other stuff we're doing, that like the fifth-year senior, is where we're going the extra step now to cover this other case. And the fifth-year students are great, and we interact with them quite often.
Trustee Brown?
So to me, it doesn't make sense that we force a student into a fifth-year situation where we know they're going to be there anyway. Why shouldn't we make an exception to our age level placement that eliminates the need to call it a fifth year? And give them an opportunity for a graduation that counts with their class.
Yeah, Ms. Mack, you want to address that?
Yeah, Trustee Brown, I would like to go back to your example earlier, because if you have a child that started younger, that child would not be offered a fifth year if you're stating a kid needs to go back a grade. So we need to think about all students in this case. And so if you're taking away that fifth year opportunity, you're taking it away for that student that may have had, I'm not saying this is a great example, but a health issue, or because that might be 504 or special ed, but there's all these other issues. And so we need to think about all issues for those kids that need a fifth year. And so what I just heard from you was that they just need to be put back at grade level when they enroll, is what I think you're saying. But we need to really think about how we read this to include all kids' possibility if a student might need fifth year.
Trustee Brown, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm certainly not arguing that point. What I'm stating is that if we know a student, when they enroll, is not going to be able to complete their education within what would be considered their age-appropriate placement, then can't we make the exception in the placement rather than forcing an exception for a 5th year? That's what I'm asking. Not that we take away the opportunity for anyone who needs the 5th year to have that. I'm saying keep this in place, but let's look at the situation where a student couldn't finish because of their circumstances, like the students who come with a unique placement need as Language Institute enrollees.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right, then are we ready for comments from the public on this then?
Did we want to just finish this
Oh,
or
yeah,
just
and
stay
this
on
is
5th year?
only-
Because
yeah.
really, this is,
What other part do we're just talking about 6146.1.
yeah, if we want to, a lot of that is just some language. I don't think it's as significant. I think if we just moved on to 28, if you guys are okay with that, to just hit the adult education options.
Okay.
That will be new for 2018-19, and then we could finish this piece up, if that's okay with the board.
Sure.
So on slide number 28, adult education options for 2018-19. Adult education is opportunity for students age 18 or older to continue to pursue an adult education diploma outside of the comprehensive site. Adult education diploma is 170 credits, or comprehensive site diploma through adult education is also available to those students who attended at AMCS Comprehensive High School the second semester of their senior year and completed the graduation requirements prior to turning 21. The next, can you show it all, please? Thanks. Proposed course offerings for 2018-19, morning classes from 8 to 12:40, 5 days a week, 8 to 9, English language development and civic participation instruction, 9 to 12, Read 180, System 44, and or Apex High School course curriculum, 12 to 12:40, individual group academic counseling, career guidance, or continuation of instruction. There's also options for evening classes, Monday through Thursday. Students can attend from 1 to 4 days per week, multiple subject high school diploma track classes, and English as a second language classes. So it gives students many options.
And again, so they could get A to G in their adult education. They could get a comprehensive high school diploma if they pursue those requirements that are in addition to the adult education requirements. And they could pursue those through adult education.
And also if the student needs language.
And they could pursue all of that with Modesto City Schools up to their 21st birthday?
If they want a CompSci diploma, if they want an adult school diploma, that continues on because that's an adult school diploma.
Okay. But the CompSci diploma could be up to the 21st birthday?
That is correct.
Great. All right, Trustee Walker.
Okay, now you have to tell me if I'm off track here, because I may get a bit off track. But since we're talking about G230 and adult education and sort of 5th year seniors, what I'd be interested in, what I don't see up here, is do they have the opportunity to get into our CTE vocational tech programs while they're in adult education, in the sense that you could be doing G230 or something else and still maybe pick up that course with the agriculture or welding or culinary or one of these other things that would make them job ready within the community? Because I'm always like looking for ways to get this gentleman some more work.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Good question. Our students that would be pursuing whatever diploma they're after in adult school, we offer a CNA program in adult education. We offer welding programs right now in adult education. So those are 2 CTE programs that we offer currently. So those are the options that, to respond to your question.
So there's potential to expand that going forward.
Yes, definitely.
Because I think that as we look at sort of, if not, again, it's a funky example. How do you pick an example? But if you've got somebody that was struggling but managed to get through adult ed that maybe didn't do A through G, that doing that equitable service to that student would be setting them up to go out and work in the real world in the sense of what me and you have talked about in the past.
Apprenticeships, relationships with MJC, those are all possibilities that we would be open to.
All right. Any more questions from the board? I'm just going to go to the public for comments only on this policy of the high school graduation requirements. I'd really like to focus in on this, the specific parts, I guess, the fifth year that we've added to the policy. Everything else is pretty similar. There's some changes that were made to the adult education, but just addressing so we could use our time efficiently, some of the changes, that would be great. So, anyone, I want to see a show of hands. I'm looking for people maybe that didn't speak, have an opportunity to speak last time, that want an opportunity to speak this time at first. So over here, yes. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. I'm a new teacher to Modesto City Schools. It's my second year. I've been a nurse 32 years. I am part of the Health Academy, the CTE program at Davis. And lots of students come to my classroom and they go,
You can give us your name too?
Lori Norris, RN. They come to my class, I want to be in your class. I want to be in your class. And I go, well, they go, I'm in the Language Institute. And as soon as I test out, which, you know, and they're ready to transition to my class, they're already too old. They come to the United States when they're 15, 16, 17. They're in the Language Institute a couple of years, and then they want to come into my class, and it's too late. The only thing they can do is the CNA program, and that's it. They don't get a chance to go into the hospital and job shadow. They don't get a chance to be in my class and learn all the background of anatomy and physiology, and a lot of them are pre-med, pre-nursing. And so they're all excited, and then they go, I don't get to come. And when a couple of them do get to come to my class, they are such hard workers. They work twice as hard as the kids who have been in Modesto City Schools their whole life, because they know it's a great opportunity to be in the CTE program at Davis, the Health Academy. They do community service. They go and serve at the mission with me. They go to schools. They do the Heart Walk. They're really motivated. They're very motivated kids. But if you started them, say they came at 16, and you made them a 15-year-old in the school, they could get to me. They would have that extra year, freshman, sophomore, so that they could meet the requirements to join the academy. And it's not just my academy that they're interested in. It's also the PSA Academy at Davis and the Firefighter Academy. So some of them want to be firefighters, cops, or nurses, or radiology techs, whatever. It's not just CNAs. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. It's a great population. I'm learning a lot about culture. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else that didn't have an opportunity to speak the last time around that wants to speak? I want to recognize them first. So if any of the students would like to speak that didn't get a chance to speak, I want to recognize them first. So please raise your hands now. Yes, in the green shirt. There's a lot of green shirts, so that green shirt.
Hi, my name is Reham Sida. I'm from Iraq. I'm 16 years old and sophomore at Davis High School. I came to the United States when I was only 8 years old in 3rd grade. I did not have the options and the chances that Language Institute has. I struggled a lot through learning English through my years here. I did not have the guide and help that they do. And what they learned through just what they're learning now, I had to learn in a matter of 2 or 3 years. They get so much help through their program, and it's very I wish I had it when I came here, because it really does help. I remember my teacher asking me what my name was, and I could not understand anything. I did not. I just looked at her in confusion. I didn't understand. I made it to Health Academy even though I'm not classified, unclassified from English yet. This is also a problem for me because they think that the Health Academy, the people that are in Health Academy and other programs can't be in programs because they're unclassified, but they can because I worked hard and I actually set goals and I always reached my goals, and that's called accomplishment. And so the Language Institute students, so they have a lot of accomplishments and goals in life that they want to reach. What we're looking here is that they can be future doctors, future engineers, future teachers. They can accomplish so much in life, more than you think. And I have so many friends that are in languages, and I'm so proud of them because they have a GPA that people in Modesto here don't even have. They have a 4.0 GPA, and it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your story. All right, anyone else that didn't get a chance to speak last time who would like to speak just specific to this policy? Again, I'd like to keep the discussion directed just at this policy, the fifth-year policy particularly, and adult education. All right, anyone else who would like to speak? I'm going to recognize 3 speakers, so let's go ahead. I saw Ms. Barrera's hand first, and then Ms. Bird, and then Dr. Herrera.
Debbie Barrera from We Are La Raza Parents Union. I'm just going to piggyback on what I said on policy 5111. And again, if we can just get some protocols and
do you have any
procedures.
Specific comments on
Yes,
policy
I do.
6146? Okay, if we could stick to that.
Okay, well, the policy for the 6146 would be, why wasn't this implemented when we first got the ALCAP money, when you first took the EAL money, when we were supposed to have implemented all of this, when you say to state and federal that you're doing it, but here, obviously, it's not being applied. Thank you.
Bird. And again, please keep comments to just this policy so we can keep the discussion going.
In regards to this policy, I have a few points to make. First, being the proposition of the adult school next year. We appreciate the opportunity to have A through G eligibility as part of it, but in drafting that, we would surely like to consider ourselves the experts in the field in terms of serving the Language Institute students, and would like to go into more detail and hopefully have input. That being said, rushing it for next year seems rash. We have about 20 students whose plan from the day they enrolled has always included extra time. I'm going to defer from calling it a 5th year since it's actually their 3rd or their 4th year. And for them to possibly all of a sudden at the end of the year be pushed to an adult school, even though the courses might match, would not match the sense of family and community and promise that we've given them. For many of our students, when we've enrolled them, AVID, Health Academy, Public Safety Academy have been the carrot, which leads to such high achievement. And I worry that if we take that carrot away by enrolling students by age and knowing that they won't have the time to transition into those academies, that part of our magic might disappear when they see adult school becoming their future rather than transitioning into A through G eligibility or the academies at Davis High School. Last, I want to address for both policies discussed tonight, the appeals and petition process. I want to make sure that the board is aware that our parents would not be able to, in writing in English, appeal or petition. And so if this is going to be part of the policy, then there needs to be a way to make sure that this is articulated in the native language of students and their parents can understand it, since it will have impact on their future. And also there needs to be a capability at the district office to read appeals and petitions in the 18 languages serviced by our program. Thank you.
Dr. Herrera.
Yes, thank you. Hello again. So, I guess a couple things. So Lindsay is exactly 100% correct. So I definitely didn't spend my time getting my doctorate just so that I could just do nothing with it, right? So a big part of the reason I got this was for them, for my students, because obviously, though our program has been successful for 9 years, Lindsay, myself, and all of our advocates have been fighting for this stuff right here. And so I thought, well, maybe if I get a DR in front of my name, they'll listen to me more. And I guess I'm sitting here frustrated because all I wanted to do is interact in this conversation with you, but we're very limited. And we've asked numerous times with various presidents if we could just be in a conversation with you, as we are the experts, because now we have the educational experience and we have, of course, the actual in the field experience. And so I guess, plea to give us opportunity to sit with you as experts and really help in the guidance of the development of these policies. And as we sit here too, I hear the word equitable, but actually, no, I don't. I hear a lot of, referencing to, we have to make this fair for all students, but yeah, but within your missions and statements, it references equity, and equality isn't equity. It's very different. Equality is good for all students and one size fits all, or as long as everybody gets it. But that's equity. That's not what that is. Equity is when a student gets what that student needs, even if it is a bit different than somebody else. And as Mr. Walker was referencing that, we have to do these things because of mandates and because of laws. Why wouldn't you want to be the school district that spearheads these new laws to develop these newcomer, policies that really help to foster, obviously, the wonderful things that we're seeing are being done with these kids? And that 5th year, she's right. It's really contingent upon the fact that they've actually had a 1st year, a 2nd year, a 3rd year, 4th year, and that 5th year. But 5th year is just, at this point, a number.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So is there something about the 5th year policy that you aren't, that is a problem? Like there's like, oh, this needs to change. Like this isn't
so no, I mean, yes and no. I guess just more specific, right? So it's a 5th year if a student has been allowed the 1st year and a
like the
second
name
year.
5th year, maybe
Well, no, but
additional year or
sure. I mean, right, but again, I think it really speaks to that equity piece, right? So a 5th year.
So what specifically in the policy is a problem, the proposed policy? Because we're looking to give direction to staff.
Right.
So I'm not hearing from you what it is that's the problem with this.
Yeah, so this year, when students have not satisfactorily completed the requirements of the district, a student may petition. So a part of this is maybe has not been given the opportunity to, like that, to me and my
the
kids.
The first sentence, I think, covers that. There may be
that there be serious and compelling reasons why a general education student may not have fulfilled the requirements.
That kind of covers
that. Okay. But I guess the thing that I'm having a problem with is the idea behind this, because a 5th year student, and the reason why they're in here now.
Okay, if we take out the word 5th year, what is it? Okay, the first part of it that you got to submit it in writing.
Right.
Is that a problem? We even have a form.
Right. Well, no, I think okay. So, President Newman, if you could just allow, like, I'm not going to pinpoint right here, but if you hear me, maybe this will be an interpretation that you could take back to your board.
Well, I'm looking for, that's why we have this meeting tonight. We're looking for, like, hey, number 3 is the worst. You people are wrong. It's what we're looking for. So
okay. So then if we put in there then upon admission, a student could be, as long as they are maybe put in to the high school based on their academic level and not their age level.
Okay, that goes back to the placement policy.
But again, Lindsay's very successfully addressed the fact why our students are going to have a hard time appealing that, which is, again, my original question to Ms. Mack in regards to, is it just that easy to say, no, my student needs to be, needs to remain in this grade level? Because if it's that easy, then awesome. We'll be fighting all day. But the thing is, I guess we just want to ensure that our students aren't coming in with a program or a policy that looks at them in a deficit mindset. Okay. So and that really gives them the full 5 years, right?
The problem is really the placement policy, but not necessarily how this is written. So the problem isn't you don't like the term 5th year.
Well, this is written for a student who's been here all his or her life and has had the access to a public education and the English language for their entire life. And this 5th year is just in addition because maybe they are a military kid and they've been going around. But I think it's been addressed that I don't want to ever say our students are very, very obviously super smart. But the idea, if we could somehow develop an individual education plan for these students without not touching the fact that I think that they're disabled in any way, but if we can give them these individual education plans, because each student has such a different story and has such a different and vast background, that we really need to look at this case by case. And when we speak on equity, that's what I'm talking about. This is not bad. Nobody in this right here is there's no lack of brain space here. This is thought, but it's just, again, it's designed for students who've been here forever, and our students just haven't.
Okay.
And so, I mean, again, if we can sit together and say, okay, what does this look like? And as Ms. West articulated, articulated that not one size doesn't fit all, and she was hoping to find policy that wouldn't, bound their hands, because we're gonna, as shifts in the world occur, we're gonna be getting new waves of people that we don't even know about. When the development of this program happened back in 2008, and then when we opened our doors in 2009, it was a completely demographic than we had originally planned for. And the evolution has been very different. The first 4 years, we had a lot of Iraqi refugees. And now we're seeing a lot of Afghan refugees or special students on special immigration visas. And their needs are different. And so are the needs of those seeking asylum from El Salvador and those, seeking asylum from Mexico. I mean, everybody is so different. And so the idea of equality, that's all cool, but it's the equity piece that we really need to use to establish policies that not only protect the integrity of our program, but the integrity of what these kids and their families have come here for, and really give them a specific plan, so that when they come in with the dreams of going to become a doctor and taking advantage and getting these AP requirements and going to these academies and really being successful citizens, they actually have the opportunity to do so before saying, sorry, you've got to defer to the adult school that doesn't have AP classes, stuff like that.
Okay. I appreciate your input and giving us feedback. Trustee Brown had a comment. Thank you. Okay.
So from what I'm hearing tonight and what I've heard in previous meetings, we have a lot of concern and fear from our existing students who are pending this decision of a 5th year. And I've heard questions tonight about whether these students would be forced into adult school or a 5th year program. Can we come up with something now? It's almost the end of the school year that allows us to know what the status is of these students. Are they going to be forced into an adult program, or are they going to be able to stay at Davis High School and finish another year of school? Can we get something definite to know, rather than always be told that they're going to be forced into adult school? What is happening with this cohort of students so that they can let go of the fear?
I think this is a question for staff. So,
I
Ms.
think
Mack?
if I understand you correctly, you're asking for the students that are at Davis High School right now to have that is in the works right now. Principal Gill has some recommendations and should be given to students, I would assume, within the week. The students will know that answer.
Is it true that some of them will be forced into an adult program?
It's by individual case and depending on their credits and their needs. So if a student needs more than that 5th year would give with a full year plus summer school, then yes, it would be recommended outside to another program. And that is the same requirement for any student. Yes. So we look at those individual students and see how many more credits they need, and can we offer them to have summer school this summer along with a year to see if we can get them to have a high school diploma.
So if I see the information correctly, we're saying that the decision for that next school year needs to be made within the first 10 days of what is considered 4th year. So
the first 10 days of the last quarter
of their 4th year.
Yes,
that's correct.
So
it would be done sooner. It would 4th quarter was March. Yes. So they would know in April,
Yeah.
So this year we didn't have that in place.
Okay.
So it's now down to the later. So that's a positive in here.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
we put in a timeline for them to get that information back sooner. But we need the time to know where their credits are, and that's why the fourth quarter was decided or recommended.
So you would know where they're at in terms of all the credits.
How many
they've
credits, how many
accumulated
credits
that
you
year.
still need, because you need to know that to make a decision if they need fifth year or not. There are some students, we've been told that they need a fifth year and they're gonna graduate this year, or they have a possibility of graduating this year. So you have to wait until we know do they need another year? You have to really look at the individual student.
Trustee Walker.
One clarification, because I think I just learned something from the audience. Somebody mentioned, I believe it was the doctor, or before that, that were students to get into academy programs have to be reclassified.
Student said that.
Did I just wanted, because I thought I heard somebody, it was maybe somebody that said, sure, I thought somebody said that in order to get into our.
The student said that.
Yes.
She said she hadn't been reclassified and was able to get in.
Is that a policy that you have to be reclassified?
Jeff, can you speak?
I'm just curious if I heard something that I should take a note on. I do listen.
Mr. Albritton's going to answer that question, I think.
If we're talking about our academies, no, there's no requirement about whether they're reclassified or not. Students are allowed in based on grades, based on their application into the academies. So any of our other CTE programs, they're allowed in. So I don't know.
I heard it, so I took the note because it seemed like it stuck out and was worth a follow-up. Other than that, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Before we move on to the next policy, what? You could come on up.
I think I just want to clarify on behalf of the student what they meant to say, just to kind of clarify, Mr. Walker. So I think what the students have been hearing at Davis have been about the academies, because to go into Health Academy, Public Safety Academy, or AVID, we're talking about the requirements for the ALD class, that the kids that are English learners would have an ALD class, right, as their English development class. So what is happening, the kids have the fear of those kids that are applying to be in the Health Academy, for example, who is one of the students that spoke, is saying, because some of the kids that are applying, they're thinking, I have to have an ALD class, which will take place of that cohort that I'm going with, because they have a specific schedule that they follow with the cohort. Adding an ALD class, that means adding an 8th period more. So I want to do this, but I'm adding more because I'm not meeting the English language requirement of having an ALD class. So they're thinking, I can't apply for a Health Academy because I have to have this ALD class, because now this is 2 different schedules, or am I adding another class? They're uncertain of where that's going. That's something that has been, talked to them. And so they are definitely thinking, okay, now I want to go this, but now I'm going to get another class. So then going back to the equity, they're thinking, why am I going to get another class, an ALD class, with other students do not have
So it's a
that
space,
requirement?
It's a space issue,
Correct.
a scheduling issue.
It's a timing
Because
issue?
well, it's a time, and also it's saying that we're adding you another class, right? But it also, the kids are very confused, and what does that look like future-wise? Does that mean that they're going to add another class to their schedule that is an ALD class because they're not reclassified?
Okay, so theoretically, in a magical world, this is solved by by the ELD. I'm just thinking because I have children.
Mm-hmm.
That if the ELD class that you're adding in was pushed into a 0 period or an 8th period, it wouldn't conflict in the middle of the day, and this is a communication issue.
Correct. And they're saying, why should we add more to that when other kids don't have to do that? And therefore, that is the equity piece that they're saying. And so because I'm not reclassified, I'm punished to giving it, a 0 or an 8th. As in the past, these kids are very successful, and we have never taken anybody back out of the Public Safety or Health Academy or AVID because they were not learning English.
Okay. All right. Thank you for helping clarify that. We have been going for about a little over 2 hours now. I usually allow a break. So but it's the will of the board. We had scheduled the public comment, or scheduled this to be till about 6:30. It's now 6:45. Trustee Lopez, are you in need of leaving us? I know that your schedule, you had a schedule conflict tonight. Okay, so is it the will of the board that we continue on? I don't know that we can finish all the policies. Do you want to take a break and continue on, or do we want to continue on the rest of for at least a while longer? What's the will of the board? We have a number. We have 41 board policy. Okay, we just did board policy 4146.1. We have AR 4146.1. We have a new one, which is board policy 4146.3. We have AR 6146.3 and AR 6146.3. Did I get them all?
Pretty much.
There
There is
might
a
have been-
lot here, and
then
I
there's-
went over the main pieces in the PowerPoint. I can go back to the few slides that I skipped. I did not hit every single piece of every single policy
we're
or
not
AR
done.
because
Yeah.
some of them are scratched out. Some are because we had to add it because now once you add a comment, kind of like you were explaining, it opened a can. I should say it that way, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we need a break, and if we could continue on till if we can break for 5 minutes and continue on till 7:15, 7:20, and let's see where we're at. Okay.
Okay.
gonna come back together and proceed. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order again. All right. We could have a seat.
I need it back on the PowerPoint.
All right, Ms. Mack, where are we at? I think, did we?
I believe we're on slide 25, Board Policy 6146.3.
Okay.
And this one really just evolved when we were working on the other ones, kind of that web that Mr. Walker was talking about, became another policy to recommend. So it's slide 25. To determine whether students transferring into the district have met district course requirements, the superintendent or designee shall establish procedures to evaluate the comparability of courses and or students understanding the course content. Such procedures shall include methods for determining the number of years of school attendance, the specific courses completed by the student, and the value of credits earned. The district shall accept for full or partial coursework satisfactorily completed by students while attending a public school, a juvenile court school, or non-public, non-secretion school or agency. Education Code 4864.5.5. Modesto City Schools will grant units of credit and grades to transfer students. Transfer students will be placed in classes similar to those in which they were enrolled at a previous school. Grades and units will be awarded on the basis of what each student earned at his or her previous school. If a transfer student must be placed in a dissimilar class, he or she will be awarded units and grades proportionally to the number of days enrolled in the class at the previous school. Units of credit will only be granted from previous accredited institutions. Private schools must be accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, WASC, the Association of Christian Schools, ACSI, or another authorized school accrediting organization. Slide 26, definitions. This is AR 6146.3. Definitions. An accredited school is one that has received accreditation by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, WASC, or other statewide or regional commissions, or, in the case of the school outside California, by the equivalent governmental or other regional accrediting agency in that jurisdiction. Transfers from accredited schools. Students transferring into the district from an accredited school receive full credit for previously completed courses when the sending district verifies that the student has satisfactorily completed those courses. Transfers from non-accredited schools. Students who attend any 912 school without accreditation will not receive credit. Appeals, due process. If a student, parent, guardian disagrees with a school site administration on a course placement and or equivalence of academic credit, the parent or guardian may appeal to the superintendent or designee. Within 10 working days of notification of a placement or credit determination, the parent guardian may request, in writing, a conference with superintendent or designee to review the school site staff decision. The superintendent or designee decision shall be final. The last two slides, I had went over those previously when we talked about adult education.
Trustee Walker has some questions. Are you done with that part?
Apparently, I bumped my light.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
But that's
Trustee Brown had a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was looking at you, and then I said your name. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Trustee Brown.
So as we look at this accreditation of schools, is there any way to address issues that arose this year with the international student and inequity between what showed on a transcript compared to what we offer in our classes? How will we make a decision in a case like that?
There were several students. I'm not sure.
So I'm referring specifically to the student from the Philippines who was placed at a higher grade
We can't
level.
talk about a specific student, so we need to adhere to the
Okay,
privacy
so
concerns.
without talking about a specific student, there are cases where a student would come from a program where, say in their country at an earlier age, they would be considered graduating from a program that's not really equivalent to our high school graduation. How will we look at that? Because this addresses accredited programs within the United States.
Do you want to answer?
I actually would suggest that we have a sentence added in there that we've collected some data. I know that what came out in some of that discussion is we've collected data from the Language Institute and various placement that we've done, and so we've been able to look at it. So if we added a sentence in there that if a student comes to us from a school outside of the country, that we would determine reciprocity of academic credit based on the information we have available. So that would mean that what we know. So if we did have a number of students from say the Philippines, if we had a number of students from the Philippines where we had looked at their academic record and what we saw was different, when we looked at their academic record and when we saw in the student themselves was different, we would be making notes of that. And because that's how these decisions have been made, and Marla's nodding, that's been how it's been made, that we've kind of looked at some of that data that we collected. So if we had a sentence in the policy which allowed us to look at that data, then we could then go on a case by case. So I would suggest that would be a way to solve it, instead of saying that this kind of information and identifying the information. We would just have a sentence in there about looking at data that's already that is available to us, and would keep that data available, in some way that we could do that, make an individual decision on that. Is that feasible, Ms. Mack? That we would?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have to work a little bit more on it, but we'll for sure propose something for the.
Like a sentence in there about a student. So if, for instance, we have a number of students that come to us from Afghanistan, and when their record shows that they have completed 8th grade, that's really, we've learned when we've talked to them and when we've had those students in school, that's the equivalent of another grade, whether that be 9th grade or whether that be 6th grade or 7th grade, whatever that is that we've learned through the years, we could then apply. But the policy itself shouldn't state that, because that's going to be fluid. The policy should allow that kind of fluid thinking.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we address the needs of students coming from outside of the areas that we've defined in the policy.
I think a sentence at the end, my take would be to put a sentence at the end of the first paragraph that it would be either the first paragraph, in the first paragraph there, or a new little section that would state something about, using the data that we have available to then make an individual determination, and then collecting it, so we get a file on, all right, these are our students from Afghanistan, these are students from Iraq, and these are students from Iran, or Mexico, or this part of Mexico, because that would be different too. So there'd be different regional differences, and so that would allow some site discretion based on the giving credit. But we do want to, the other end of it is we're not giving enough credit to a student that has credit, and we don't want to deny them. That's denying them an education too. So we need to, there's certainly the students here tonight are representing the other end of the spectrum, but I know that if we need to allow for credit if they've been given the course. Trustee Walker.
I think I'm right on the same point as you, and I can't think of the word because my brain's tired now.
I'm tired.
When I came back from being in the military in Europe and I transferred to colleges here, they allowed me to use, it's not called the course synopsis, I forget what you call it in actual class. Syllabus. Thank you. That a course syllabus could sort of be used to match up what would be a similar course. in sort of that decision process. And I don't know if that's something we do, but I know it's something that they did for me when I came back, because nobody knew who the heck City College of Chicago, Frankfurt, West Germany was. And so I had to bargain with De Anza, and we used the core syllabuses to do that, and it seemed fair.
All right, anyone else on the board? All right, anyone in the public that would like to talk about this specific policy? We're looking at, well, I guess we're looking at both, well, just AR 6146, reciprocity of academic credit. Anyone? Yes, Ms. Bird.
Again, I completely acknowledge this is for all students, but as an advocate for my kids, since we're here, I again thank you for bringing up the question regarding foreign transcripts, because with the wording of the policy as I read from my seat, if it's not accredited, it insinuated that they wouldn't be giving credit. So if we could add something in there to make sure foreign transcripts would count. In addition to that, kind of similar to Mr. Walker's story, we have many students coming from countries where the math and science is far more rigorous than ours. And so is there a possibility to get that counted for A through G credit, so that in addition to keeping them on track for graduation, we can keep that college mobility pipeline going for immigrants and refugees? Also, I'm curious regarding a transfer student, if their language ability could allow us to go outside of their current transfer grades or classes. For example, we get students coming to our program from other U.S. schools who are put in a very traditional schedule by grade level. When we assess them, they have zero reading and writing ability. They don't even know the Roman alphabet. So rather than put them in a biology class, we'll put them in a Foundations of Literacy or acculturation class that supports their language development. That's proven to be successful, and we would like to keep that practice going rather than just accepting transfer grades from unsimilar programs for newcomers. And also, in addition to the gray area regarding how to implement when the country doesn't match our system, you brought up the situation from the Philippines, and you made the recommendation of adding a sentence and going off past data. I appreciate at the end you made mention that different regions and different countries should be considered, because that's certainly the case. Also, I would like to add that the students and their parents are the experts, and they should have a seat at the table. And also the students' long-term plans. For example, maybe it's in their best interest to not count a questionable year as 9th grade if it buys them an extra year of language development and access to A through G curriculum. So student voice and parent voice should be part of that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mack, to follow up on something that she said, the A to G, that on A to G, as I understand it, that's not up to us. That we offer, if we offer those courses, the CSU and the UC system sets requirements for those, so we can't dictate to them what would be A to G. Am I right? I think I don't want to open us up to promising something that we can't promise.
I think you're on the right track, but I don't want to. Yeah, Mike's going to talk to them.
For A to G certification, we submit our course outlines to A to G,
Right.
the University of California. They approve those course outlines, looking to make sure they include all of the elements, including the writing and the various rigor. If it's a science, the labs and all of that. So it does have to meet the A to G rigor that they have outlined. So we would not be able to give A to G credit. UC is the one that grants the credit for that. The same way that we couldn't give A to G credit for a student that came from any school that wasn't our school. Only the courses that we offer that they have certified as A to G count for us to be A to G certified.
Great, thank you. I just want to clarify that for everybody, because that's again not us that's promising that. All right, anyone else on this particular policy? All right. Then back to the board. I think any comments or suggestions for revision that we haven't already talked about? I think that one of the things that is really important here for me is transfers from accredited schools, and then I think we need a section to expand the section on transfers from non-accredited schools. Because I'm not sure that any of our international students really come from accredited schools or not. I can't I don't know how we assess that. So I think that the policy is vague because it doesn't address what's credited or not. And I think that, okay, so there's non-accredited schools in the United States. I've had a call from a parent that said, oh my gosh, I put my kid in a Christian school in Tennessee, and now we moved out here, and my kid is a junior, and he's 16, but they're saying he's a freshman, he doesn't have any credits. And this poor mom was heartbroken, but this wasn't, the school they had attended was not accredited. So, okay, this policy would apply to that student, but a student that comes from a school that there's no accrediting agency, particularly in that country. There's no international accrediting agency, I'm pretty sure. So I think that the policy needs to address that so that we know how to deal with it. Again, using our own data, making individual decisions on it, and including the parent. I think that was a good point, parent and student input. Maybe even an interview with the student would be appropriate, so that somebody can assess it, and with some questions, and asking them some questions about where they actually are would maybe be appropriate. So there needs to be another section added to this. And anyone, Mr. Walker.
Just to follow up on what you said, because I spend too much time next to you, so I think like a lawyer now.
Oh dear.
I'm getting better at it. I'm going to get a lowercase j. It'll never be a J and a D. Provided that we look at the ed code to make sure that we don't sort of get out of bounds on giving credit for something we can't. And that's only because I've been reading recently, and there's problems in LA and other places where they're bumping up graduation rates and they're really not ready. And so that makes me a tad lawyer nervous. But other than that, God bless, go forward.
I think, so the board policy would then need to probably have a sentence in there that I think that the board policy is completely mirrors gamut, but we would need maybe a paragraph in there that the board policy, okay, because board policies set forth the policy, and then the AR sets forth how we do it, okay, and how we actually make that happen. So we would need a sentence in the board policy for our students that come to us from other countries. We would try and accommodate. We would look at the flexibility for our international students. We would maybe try and some broad statement that we would try and provide an educational opportunity that is appropriate for their learning level. Some broad statement there, and we'll articulate how we would do it in AR. So I think that we'd have to add a sentence to both. Is anybody?
I would agree.
Yeah, no, there's a lot more that would have to be added to the AR. I think we have to have a section, but a sentence has to be in the board policy in order for us to add the section in the AR. That's how they work when they have those sister numbers like that. So you look at so that's how these things work. It took me a while to figure that out, but you have the board policy that sets forth, this is what we're going to do, this is why we do it, and then this is how we're going to do it, administrative regulation. So that's where we need to address those. All right, are there any more comments on that? Any more from the audience on that? All right, do we have another policy we're looking at tonight? No. All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak on what I think we talked about adult education already on slide 28. Yeah, we talked about 28 and 29. All right, and are there any further questions? Trustee Brown.
Turning it on and then off again. My question now is procedural. Tonight has been a study session, has not been, are we calling this a reading of these proposed? Okay, so.
I said that at the beginning.
Okay, so just so that the public is aware of what's happening next, we're going to bring this back now to a regularly scheduled board meeting for a first reading before a decision can be made at the time of a second meeting. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Actually, there's one more step in there. So the first step after this is that it goes to cabinet. Well, we've suggested revisions. The public has suggested revisions to it. So the Miss Mack and her team need to get back together, and we need to tweak these. That's why we started with some policies, so we'd have a place to start, so we could have an intelligent discussion. And so it needs to go back to it needs to go back to her team, and then it goes to cabinet, and then it will come to a first read to the board, and then it would come so the public would have a chance to weigh in again for the first read to the board, and then it would come for a second read. And so this is not a first read of the policy. There's some of them we didn't really have very many changes to make, but there's some that we have quite a few. So if you wanted things to be considered in each of these policies, it's the time to speak up and to address those needs with our staff. So if you think about something later, be sure and contact Ms. Mack, but anything, yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
So I just want to make sure that my voice is heard, that I would like us to consider some specific direction that addresses the specific needs of our international students who are arriving during their high school years, determining what their correct placement is when they arrive.
So you want revisions to AR 5111. That's the placement and admission policy.
And I'd like that to be very specific to I'm not sure what we call the students, but our students who are entering high school from another country during their high school years.
So not specific to LI students, but specific to students coming from another country?
Well, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to recognize the needs of our students who are coming to us not only as refugees, but as students from another country or language.
Okay. All right, Trustee Lopez.
I just want to second that statement with Mr. Brown.
All right, and Trustee West.
I'm also in agreement, and I would like to make sure that we have something in there that allows us discretion and looking at individual cases. I know we have to look at the whole, but as Trustee Newman had stated, we need something that gives us the opportunity to have a little flexibility as well when we're looking at individual cases, meeting with students, meeting with parents, meeting with experts who probably know more than we do about how best to help these students.
Trustee Walker.
I'm just simply a thank you to Ms. Mack and her staff for going through all of this, because this is one section of a very big binder, and it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of effort, like I said before, and it needs a thank you, pat on the back, heads up, well done, so that you're aware that I appreciate all the work that you went through, because this isn't easy to do. And for the 5th time, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Then I think I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh, Trustee. Okay. You want to move the. Okay. So moved by Trustee Walker, seconded by Trustee Lopez. All those in favor? Aye. Say aye. All right. We are adjourned.